All right, good morning, everybody. This is the Fantasy Sports Boss coming to you live Monday morning, August 29th. An impromptu live stream this morning, just because there was a lot of uh, big news items that came down yesterday, Sunday, of course, the biggest being Brian Robinson, the rookie running back for the Washington Commanders, getting shot multiple times in the lower extremities. He's currently hospitalized in stable condition. So that's the big takeaway. And the most important thing is that Robinson is in stable condition. Um, certainly shocking. Not something I expected to hear about. And the real shame of it all is that Robinson had just been pretty much anointed the starting running back for the Commanders, as Antonio Gibson literally fumbled away his opportunity. But now all that's in question. So, I didn't talk any fantasy football related issues with Robinson yesterday out of respect to the situation. It wasn't, that wasn't the time or the place. The only thing I will say this morning about that is I don't expect to see Robinson for a while. They didn't give any specifics as to where he was shot, and honestly, it's really none of our business. But lower extremities, if he did get shot in the legs, and again, we're talking about multiple gunshots, it's going to be tough for Robinson to make it back for a while. So obviously the fallout here is that Antonio Gibson probably becomes a starter again with J.D. McKissic handling third downs. Jaret Patterson also probably would be involved. But that's no guarantee either, just because Gibson is so clearly in the doghouse of Ron Rivera that I wouldn't assume anything. But obviously, if you're having drafts this weekend, Gibson should be elevated and back on the radar as a guy who could get a decent amount of work to start the season. So that's really all I have on Robinson. I was checking for updates this morning. Ron Rivera met with him yesterday. He says he's in good spirits. He'll be back. I think he said he'll be back soon, but that's just coach speak, in my opinion, because again, we don't know. I'm not going to speculate on the severity of the injuries. That's not, obviously not my expertise. But if you're talking about gunshot wounds to the lower extremities, that's going to be tough. And our thoughts and prayers go out to Robinson and a speedy recovery. Not a good situation there. The other thing I wanted to talk about this morning. Before I get further along, listen, be sure this is a new YouTube channel. I started this not that long ago because I moved away from the website that I've been operating for 15 years. It was just getting to be a little too much with everything else, all the my annual draft guides and everything else. So I figured move it over to YouTube. All my former features that were on the website are now going to be in video form here. Instant injury updates like I did yesterday. I had the Robinson update within seconds after the news came out, and it quickly went viral. And that's what I'm going to be doing on Sundays during football, watching all the games, instant injury updates throughout. So if Christian McCaffrey pulls a hamstring, 30 seconds later, I'll have a video up. All right. So again, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Ask all your questions in the comments or even on here during the chat, during the live streams. You can ask during the chat, and I'll answer as many as I can. Follow me on Twitter at RotoBoss. You could also submit questions there as well that I could use on the stream. So what I'm going to start this week is sharing my top 10 players at each position and how I have them ranked. I'll probably go 15 deep at receiver, but like today I'm going to do the quarterbacks just to kick it off. I'm going to do the top 10 quarterbacks in my how I have them ranked, and then move on down the line to the running backs tomorrow, or maybe later today. I'll put a separate video up for running backs and so on and so forth. So with that out of the way, Najee Harris kind of dropped a bomb like that, dealing with a Lisfranc sprain in his foot. Come again. So when you see the word Lisfranc with a running back, or really any player for that matter, alarm bells start to go off in your head. This can be a debilitating injury that lasts for weeks and weeks and weeks. It could really impact a player's performance, and Harris has not played well this preseason. The offensive line still looks terrible, but Yeah, this was a little disconcerting. Now, Harris will be there for the opener, but from what I gather, the situation is that it's considered quote unquote an old injury, but you ask people in the medical field, and I'm married to one. Lisfranc injuries take a long time to heal. So you're talking about a running back, a 300 touch running back who's going in the mid first round of fantasy drafts, dealing with a Lisfranc injury. I was already out on Harris just because I don't think he was terribly inefficient. I think he was something like 40th on a per touch basis. Yes, volume is king, and he did get a lot of volume, but he's not going to get that volume this season because Noodle and Ben Roethlisberger are not going to be checking down to him on every snap. So now you have a foot issue on top of the decreased workload. So I'm totally out on Harris now, and that offensive line still stinks. I watched them this preseason; they're terrible. They were terrible last year. Harris averaged under 4 yards per carry. I'm want to do better with my first round pick for sure. Now, if you can get him in the second round, the beginning of the second round, because I think he's going to start sliding now after this news came out, then I would do it. But in the first round, And speaking of the Steelers, they foolishly played their starters yesterday, and Deontay Johnson ended up with a shoulder injury, making a 30-plus yard catch, left the game, went right to the locker room. Mike Tomlin says he's fine. Same thing with T.J. Watt, who also left early. What's Tomlin going to say? Tomlin's going to be very careful with his words. You never really totally trust the coach initially when it comes to injuries because they got to go through testing. The coach can say, "Oh, he's fine," but they still got to go through the medical procedures. So, Johnson was another guy I don't own him. Excuse me. I don't own him anywhere right now for the sort of the same reasons with Harris. The volume's going to go down for Deontay Johnson just because Trubisky or Kenny Pickett are going to throw the ball further down the field, and that's more toward the liking of of Pickens. And in the slot, you have Chase Claypool, Pat Freiermuth, the tight end. You have a lot of competition for touches now, and you have the Deontay Johnson-loving quarterback and Roethlisberger, who's off into retirement. So I was out on Deontay Johnson. So this news definitely – well, I don't think it's a big deal. I think Johnson ultimately will be there in week one. It's not what you want to see this close to the season. So, I generally have Johnson in that Jalen Waddle area code. T. Higgins. I have Higgins ahead of both of them, but I don't think I'm going to be owning any of those guys. Higgins possibly. The other two, no, definitely not. So I thought that was a little disturbing. The Jets situation, the running back situation. Breece Hall had an 11-yard run, but that was it. Michael Carter was running with the starters right off the bat. He did fumble, but he came right back out in the next series. So no harm, no foul, according to in terms of any benching by Saleh. Carter went right back out there. He was targeted in the passing game. Breece Hall was not. I've said from the very beginning, I'm getting tired of saying it. Breece Hall was incredibly overdrafted as a early fourth round guy in ADP. He's starting to inch back now into the fifth round, where I actually think he should be more in the sixth because Michael Carter is not going away. The coaching staff drafted him last year. He breaks tackles. He broke a tackle yesterday nicely on one of his runs. He could really catch the football. The Jets are going to be trailing a lot, so they're going to be using him in the hurry up. Breece Hall will get the goal line work for sure. So he's got value in standard, but in PPR leagues, I don't think Breece Hall is going anywhere near workhorse. I will say that Hall could gain value as the season goes on. Carter has a history of injuries. He's a smaller back, so maybe Hall could be like a second half guy. But from the very beginning, I was very leery of the cost on Hall, and we do this with rookie running backs. We did it with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We did it with Ryan Matthews. We did it with Rashad Penny initially as well. So this is something that the fantasy community does, including myself, and we really need to have a little bit more patience when it comes to rookie backs and not expect the moon out of them. So, yeah, I'm still not enthused by that whole situation. All right, so let's do the top 10 quarterbacks for the 2022 season. Now, in terms of the strategy, you all know my deal with quarterbacks. I've said it from the very beginning of the season. If you're in a 12-team league, be the 12th guy to take a quarterback and then back them right up with Trey Lance. All right, if Trey Lance goes before the 12th guy, then you take Aaron Rodgers and Dak Prescott back to back. and then you just switch them out based on the matchups. Because ultimately, like I said, I think it's going to be the top 11 guys. I think are going to be Allen, Mahomes, Herbert, Burrow, Jackson. That's 5. Hurts 6, Brady 7, Wilson 8, Murray 9. I think Lance is going to get in there now. So 10, and then let's say it's Prescott. That's 11. So then that would leave Stafford at 12. It would leave Aaron Rodgers at 12. Kirk Cousins. If you could do Stafford Rodgers, or if you're worried about Stafford's elbow, you could do Rodgers and Cousins. I think Cousins is a great bet for those who gamble on leading the NFL in touchdown passes and yardage as well. They're going to throw it, and they're going to throw it a lot in Minnesota. And Cousins, you say what you want. He doesn't come up big in the big games, but the numbers are always there at the end of the season. So, and he's thrown 30 touchdowns 3 of the last 4 years in a run-heavy offense. So that's how I would handle the quarterbacks. You don't need to draft. The one guy I will there's two. The two guys that I would maybe go against that strategy that I just informed you of are Jackson and Hurts. I've come around on Hurts. I've already eaten some crow on Hurts. Jackson and Hurts, if I'm sitting there in the 5th round and I got stud running back and I got 2 stud receivers, and Hurts and Jackson are sitting there in the 5th round, I'll think about that. But if I don't get either one of those guys, then I'm going to wait for the 12th guy. And if it's Rodgers, great. I'm fine with that. I think it's a gross overreaction about the 2-time defending MVP being pushed down as far as he is. All right, so in terms of the rankings, Josh Allen's number 1. That goes without saying. He's been a cheat code with his rushing and passing game. Number 1 quarterback the last 2 years. The only concern I have with Allen is that the last 6 games he's playing this season are in cold weather, elemental environments where the snow and the wind could be a factor. So that's the only issue I have. And, anybody who owned him last year in that crazy wind game against the New England Patriots with the snow, and Allen put up a dud because he couldn't throw the ball in the wind. Nobody could in that kind of environment. That's the risk you run, especially with the playoff weeks. It could be a blizzard or a snowstorm, and then you can't use them in the playoffs. And that's not a small thing. Everybody who invests in Allen needs to be aware of this. It could be snowing, it could be gale force winds in a playoff game, or your fantasy championship, and then you got to make the gut wrenching decision. Oh my God, do I bench him? What do I do here? And so you almost have to have a good backup just in case. But he's the number 1 guy. I don't think there's any question about it. All right. In terms of number 2, I have Herbert number 2. I honestly, if you have Mahomes 2 or Herbert 2, I'm not going to argue with you. Either one. Let's just call them 2A and 2B. All right. So Herbert and Mahomes, there's going to be shootouts galore. Just because Tyreek Hill's gone, it doesn't mean you knock Mahomes. Maybe slightly if you want to. The 2 deep safeties really kind of impacted Mahomes, who had a little bit of a midseason slump last year. But I think ultimately he's going to be fine. And Justin Herbert is just a monster, underrated runner as well. And that is a nuclear passing attack with Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Josh Palmer, Austin Eckler out of the backfield. That is an absolutely nuclear passing attack. So I have Herbert 2 and Mahomes 3, but if you reverse them, that's fine. Number 4, I have Lamar Jackson. He's slipping. He had the injury last year. He's slipping a little bit because of that. Things were skewed. The Ravens had no runners. J.K. Dobbins was out. Gus Edwards was out. So Jackson was forced to throw the ball a lot, and that's not his game. He gets exposed a little bit when he has to just be a pure pocket passer. That won't be the case this year. We have Dobbins is back. They have decent depth with Mike Davis and Tyler Beatty, the rookie, and eventually Edwards will be returning as well. So I like Jackson in the 4th spot. And like I said, if he's sitting there in round 5, I'll think about taking him. And then right behind him is Jalen Hurts at number 5. Hurts has looked great this preseason. He's really connecting with A.J. Brown. They brought in A.J. Brown to join Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith and Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell out of the backfield. So this is a very impressive and the best offensive line of football, in my opinion. The Eagles' offensive line is the best unit, in my opinion, the entire NFL. So it's all set up for Hurts to go nuts. He's a true league-winning quarterback this year. I have him 5th just because, yes, there's still that thought in the back of your head that they might run it more than you think. which they did towards the end of the year. They really ran it heavily. But bringing in A.J. Brown is an indication that they're probably going to try to open it up more. And then, the accuracy. It's not great. Hurts does have to prove himself as a pure passer, but I think the sky's the limit on him for sure. All right, number 6, I have Russell Wilson. All right, I have Wilson at 6. I think it's ridiculous that Wilson is being drafted behind Joe Burrow, 16 picks behind Joe Burrow. I think it's a joke. He's more of a runner than Burrow. He's got just as good weapons as Joe Burrow. Maybe slightly, Sutton and Judy, Chase and Higgins. You take Chase and Higgins for sure. I get it. But Judy and Sutton are no slouch. You have a guy who's a stud, 30-plus every year TD quarterback who's going to run for 400 yards. Even at his age, 33, let's say it's 300 yards. That's still going to be 200 more than Burrow has. So, and he doesn't have the health questions. This is, last year he missed games for the first time in his career. This is one of the most durable players in the game. So I get it. He's getting a little bit older, but he's going to be rejuvenated. They're going to open things up in this passing attack. It's going to look great. So I have Russell Wilson at 6. All right. And I don't have any hesitation taking him there. I have Burrow at 7. It's not that I don't like Burrow, but I think he's being overdrafted. I don't think he should be going 16 spots ahead of Wilson. The receivers are immense. Chase, Higgins, Tyler Boyd, P. Ryan out of the backfield. They take Mixon Elf on third down, which is ridiculous. But, listen, he's as long as he's healthy and the offensive line is fixed, which was a disgrace last year, then I'm good with Burrow in the number 7 spot. All right, so number 8, I have Kyler Murray. What I don't like about Kyler Murray is he wears down every year. If you look the last 3 seasons, his best work by far comes in the first half of the season. The second half of the season, whether it's the hits that start adding up, injuries, the weather turning when he has to go to cold weather environments, the numbers start to sink. And that's not what you want out of your fantasy quarterback. You want to have them at optimum value, going into the postseason, into the playoff weeks. You want them doing their best work when the playoff weeks arrive. So that's why I have him. I have Murray at 8, because I'm a little concerned about just whether he's going to be able to hold up over the course of the season. So that's why I have him at 8. All right, in terms of number 9, I have Tom Brady. It's been a weird summer for Tom Brady. I don't understand this. I don't know if he was on The Masked Singer, if he's having marital, trouble. It seems like there's something going on. He doesn't look happy. I feel like he's a little bit withdrawn from the team, and that concerns me, especially about investing in a Mike Evans or a Chris Godwin this season, because you wouldn't think that Tom Brady would ever be checked out, but something's not right. He was away from the team for 2 weeks. The offensive line the interior offensive line is a problem. Ryan Jensen out for the year. And the number one way to disrupt Brady is to pressure him up the middle. And that's what the Giants did so successfully in the 2 Super Bowls. So I have him at 9. I'm a little nervous about Brady. I'm not going to draft him, I don't think. I'm just going to try to look elsewhere. I actually, number 10, I have Dak Prescott. I might even flip them. I might put Prescott at 9 and Brady at 10. I like Prescott. I've always liked Prescott. And he, too, he had the injury in 2020, which was devastating. But prior to that, he made every start. Very durable, like Russell Wilson. They're going to throw it a lot. If the receivers are decimated, Michael Gallup will come back soon. James Washington is out. They still got Dalton Schultz. They still got CeeDee Lamb. Lamb has to prove he could be a number 1 guy. That's probably the key to the offense. Tyron Smith is out, the tackle. That's a big loss. Will Prescott run a little bit more? I hope so. That would boost his numbers a little bit more. He hardly ran it all last season. He's capable of 300 rushing yards. So I have him at 10. I might bump him up to 9 and flip him with Brady. So those are my top 10. All right. So Prescott at 10. I have Trey Lance at 11. And again, listen, I love Trey Lance as much as anybody. I hope I can get him with the 12-13 combo like I was telling you about. But he's only made 2 starts. We have to see it first. You have a very accomplished quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo, who's gone to 2 NFC Championship games, sitting there on the bench. So if Lance starts the season crap in the bed, Kyle Shanahan is only going to be patient to a point. He's got a playoff team. This is a playoff team. If Lance is crapping the bed early on, he's going to go to Jimmy Garoppolo. So I have Lance outside the top 10 and 11. All right. At 12, I have Aaron Rodgers. I think Rodgers will be just fine. 13, I have Stafford. I downgraded Stafford because of the elbow. I think he'll gut through it, but I'm a little nervous about the elbow. I'm not going to lie. The coaching staff seems concerned enough about it, so I'm concerned as well. So I have him at 13. And then I have Kirk Cousins at 14 and Derek Carr at 15. All right. So Cousins at 14, Carr at 15. Take one of those guys as your backup if you can't get Trey Lance as a backup. If you choose Trey Lance as your starter, I would back him up with Aaron Rodgers or Stafford. So after 15 at Carr, the only other quarterback I really would be interested in, 15. I have Justin Fields at 16, and I have Trevor Lawrence at 17. I really like the way Justin Fields has played, and he's going to run for 800 yards. And whatever he gives you as a passer, it's a bonus. Trevor Lawrence, listen, everybody can't be wrong about this guy. He was a stud in college, a can't miss, an Andrew Luck guy. He's gonna start breaking out, I think, this season. He's got the right coach, Doug Peterson. I think it's gonna work. He's gonna run. He ran more than he's given credit for last season. He's very athletic. He's got the strong arm. I think he's gonna be a solid backup guy who you could use during bye weeks. All right, so that's my top 10 quarterbacks for the season. I'm going to do the running backs later. That'll be a separate video, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we will go from there. All right, everybody, so we will talk soon. Take care.